Hi everyone, how are you all? A very warm good evening to every one of you. I'm hoping that you all are healthy, safe, and staying indoors. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so today I'm gonna talk about one of the chapters from class 8th, right? And that is square and square roots, right? We're gonna discuss square and square roots today. And if I talk about the basic of this chapter, right? So to begin with, I would say a square and a square roots are two different concepts, right? A square and a square roots are two different concepts such that one is opposite to the other, right? A square and a square roots are inverse operations, or in simple language, you can say a square and square roots are two different concepts, you know, such that one is opposite to the other. ठीक है, स्क्वायर और स्क्वायर रूट दो अलग अलग चीजें हैं जो क्या हैं, बिल्कुल एक दूसरे के ऑपोजिट हैं. But in order to understand this statement that how a square and a square roots are inverse operations, or how, in other words, how they are opposite to each other, you need to keep patience till we finish both part of this chapter, that is square and square roots, right? Once we will finish both parts, okay, I will show you and verify how this statement is true, as in how square and square roots are inverse operations. ठीक है, जब हम इस चैप्टर को पढ़ लेंगे पूरा, इस चैप्टर के दो हिस्से हैं, पहला स्क्वायर और दूसरा स्क्वायर रूट्स. तो जब हम दोनों पढ़ लेंगे उसके बाद मैं आपको ये बताऊंगा कि कैसे ये स्टेटमेंट जो कहा जा रहा है कि स्क्वायर स्क्वायर रूट्स एक दूसरे के ऑपोजिट होते हैं, दोनों इन्वर्स ऑपरेशन हैं, ये चीज उस वक्त प्रूव करके वेरीफाई करके दिखाया जाएगा. ठीक है. So now that we know that this chapter has two parts, so now we're gonna proceed with the first part, and that is a square. Now remember one thing, that when I say square here, a square doesn't mean, I'm not talking about a geometrical shape, right? I'm not talking about a four-sided closed figure, whose all sides and both diagonals are equal, right? Here, a square means a square number, or a perfect square number. And now this is a point to understand that what is a square number or what is a perfect square number, but just make sure that I'm not talking about that geometrical shape square. ठीक है, ये स्क्वायर जो है वो नॉर्मल ज्योमेट्री वाला स्क्वायर नहीं है, हम यहाँ पे स्क्वायर नंबर या परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नंबर भी जिसे कहते हैं उसकी बात करेंगे. So we will understand this is square or square number, with an example. So on the RHS, I have, some natural numbers. I have first 10 natural numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, if you look closely at this number, I have, taken out 1, 4, and 9. Now, what's special about these three numbers, right? Why did I choose only these three? Okay, so let me tell you what is a square. First of all, a number which can be expressed, right? A number which can be expressed as the product of any number with itself. Okay, once again, a number, you can see the definition on the top, a number which can be expressed in a way that can be written as product of any other number with itself, right? So if I take 1, I can write 1 as 1 multiplied by itself, meaning 1 by 1, right? The second number is 4. If I want to, write 4 as product of two other numbers such that that number multiplied by itself, so I can write it as 2 multiplied by itself, meaning 2. Similarly, 9 can be written as 3 multiplied by 3. So if I talk about only these 10 numbers, there are no any other numbers which can be expressed like this, right? Like we cannot write 5 as product of a number multiplied by itself. And I'm talking about natural numbers, right? Similarly, we cannot write 6 as a number multiplied by itself. And therefore, out of these 10 numbers, 1, 4, and 9 are square numbers. Why? Because it can be written like a number multiplied by itself. Okay, it can be written in squared form. तो स्क्वायर नंबर क्या है? वो नंबर जिसको हम क्या कर सकते हैं, इस तरह से लिखें कि कोई नंबर multiplied by the same number. ठीक है, तो इस तरह से देखें तो 1, 4 और 9 क्या है, परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नंबर्स है. नेक्स्ट नंबर क्या हो सकता है, 10 के बाहर अगर हम जाएं, like 16, because 16 can be written as 4 into 4, but all those numbers in between 9 and 16 are not square numbers. Why? Because like 12 cannot be written, right, as a product of two numbers, such that that number multiplied by itself, that's not possible, and therefore 1 is a perfect square number. Okay, 4 is a perfect square number, 9 is also a perfect square number, 16 could be the next example. Okay, 25 is another example, because 25 can be written as 5 into 5, and all those numbers in between 16 and 25 are not perfect squares. Okay, so I hope that is clear. So the next one is, how do you find the square of a number, right? See, in general, multiplying a number by itself is called a squaring, right? The process or this method, like if I choose any random number, I say 7, and I multiplied that 7, with itself, like 7 multiplied by 7, then that process is known as a squaring. But if I multiply 7 with any other number except for 7, that process is simply multiplication, right? If I say 7 multiplied by 4, that is a process of multiplication. 7 multiplied by 5, that is a process of multiplication. 7 multiplied by 8, that is a process of multiplication. But when I say 7 multiplied by itself, as in 7 multiplied by 7, that is called a squaring, right? Although that is a process of multiplication, but it has got a special name, a squaring. ठीक है, तो जनरली बात करें तो स्क्वायरिंग का क्या मतलब होता है कि किसी नंबर को खुद से मल्टीप्लाई कर देना, कोई नंबर को उसी नंबर से मल्टीप्लाई कर देना, इस प्रोसेस को मल्टीप्लिकेशन कहते हैं. ठीक है, मिसाल के तौर पे अगर मैं 7 लूं, तो 7 को अगर मैं 7 से ही मल्टीप्लाई करूं, तो इस प्रोसेस का नाम क्या है, स्क्वायरिंग. ठीक है, लेकिन अगर मैं 7 को किसी और नंबर से मल्टीप्लाई कर दूं, 7 मल्टीप्लाइड बाई 10, दैट इज सिंपली मल्टीप्लिकेशन. 7 मल्टीप्लाइड बाई 12, दैट इज सिंपली मल्टीप्लिकेशन. But when I say 7 multiplied by 7, that is squaring, right? जब मैं कहता हूँ 8 multiplied by 8, squaring. But when I say 8 multiplied by 12, that is multiplication. Okay. So in general, how do you find the square of a number? So you can see a square of 5. The square of 5 can be written as 5 multiplied by 5, that is 25. And now this is, very basic, right? You will get some questions like find the square of 41, and you're not going to do this. You're going to you will not do that question, and like this, that 41 multiplied by 41 is 41 square. No, we will use like formulas like a plus b the whole square, and when needed we will also use a minus b the whole square. That's the way of finding the square of any number, bigger number. But in general, the squaring means multiplying a number by the same number. Okay, and you can see here in the table you have some numbers for for your help. The square of first 20 natural numbers. If you remember these 20 numbers, this will be very helpful for you in this chapter. So to proceed with, I have properties of square numbers, right? And in fact, I'm going to discuss like 13, 14 properties here. And out of these 13 and 14 properties, like almost 8 or 10 are very easy. You can just, do questions based on these properties orally. But for some, you need to, pick up your pen. So just remember and listen this very carefully, because this is all that is in this chapter. You have to, know very well the properties of square numbers. ठीक है, स्क्वायर नंबर की प्रॉपर्टीज बहुत सारी हैं. यहाँ मैं 12, 13, 14 कुछ बताऊंगा, जिसमें से ज्यादातर बहुत इजी हैं, जिसको हम क्या कर सकते हैं, ओरली, उन पे जो बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस होंगे उनको ओरली सॉल्व कर सकते हैं. तो यहाँ पे सबसे पहली प्रॉपर्टी क्या है? So the first property says numbers ending with 2, 3, 7 and 8 are not perfect squares. See, this is very simple. What does it say? It says that numbers ending with 2, 3, 7 and 8 are not perfect square, right? I will show you with some examples. See, you type any random number, okay, and now I have to say whether this number is a perfect square number or not, right? We will do examples on each property. So the first example on first property, it says the number 87545649. We have to check whether this number is a perfect square or not, right? Meaning, and when I say perfect square, we already have seen that a square means a number which can be written as the product of any another number with itself. स्क्वायर नंबर का क्या मतलब है कि किसी नंबर को हम अगर इस तरह से लिख सकें कि कोई अदर नंबर मल्टीप्लाइड बाय द सेम नंबर, तब वो नंबर परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नंबर है, अदरवाइज नहीं है. लेकिन हम वो काम यहाँ पे नहीं करेंगे. We're gonna simply look at the number and say whether it is a perfect square or not. So what's the rule? The rule says, the first rule, okay, the first rule says numbers ending with 2, 3, 7 and 8. Let's just say this number ends with 8. This is my complete number. This number ends with, and I will tell you why did I add 8. I will tell you the reason behind that. So first of all, let's just say this is my complete number 8756498, and I have to check whether this number is a perfect square or not. Just remember first rule, first property of square numbers, that any number that ends with 2, 3, 7 or 8 is not a perfect square, right? And going by that rule, this number is not a perfect square because it ends with 8. Is that clear? We do not need to look at other digits. Just look at the last digit, the number that is at units place, ones place. Just look at that number, right? And if that ends with 2, 3, 7 or 8, any of these four numbers, then that number is certainly not a perfect square. Okay. Similarly, if I say any other number like this number, right, 49563, and I need to check whether this number is a perfect square or not. Again, going by the first property that says any number ending with 2, 3, 7 and 8 are not perfect square. So this is not a perfect square, and reason being because this number ends with 3. Is that clear? I hope it is. Next, similarly, you can take any example, okay, and now this number again is not a perfect square. Why? Because this ends with 2. If anybody asks the reason behind it, you can say because any number that ends with 2, 3, 7 and 8 are not perfect square. You can even verify this number by taking its square root, but you need to wait because, as I said in the beginning, a square root is just another concept and the second half of the chapter, so you need to keep patience. ठीक है, तो ये स्क्वायर रूट किसी भी नंबर को चेक करने का क्या तरीका है कि कोई भी नंबर परफेक्ट स्क्वायर है कि नहीं है. हम क्या करेंगे, उस नंबर का लास्ट डिजिट देखेंगे. अगर उस नंबर के लास्ट डिजिट में या तो 2 है या 3 है या 7 है या 8 है, तो वो नंबर 100% परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नहीं है. बाकी के डिजिट्स क्या हैं, कितने डिजिट हैं टोटल उस नंबर में, उससे कोई मतलब नहीं है. ठीक है. नाउ द सेकंड प्रॉपर्टी, the second property says numbers ending with 1, 4, 5, 6, 9. I mean, imagine all the digits from 1 to 9. If I've already talked about 2, 3, 7 and 8, what are the remaining digits? 1, 4, 5, 6, 9. I'm taking 0 out of it because that has another property. I will discuss numbers ending with 0 separately. So if I talk about, numbers ending with 1, 4, 5, 6, 9, what can we say about that? See, numbers ending with 1 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 9 may or may not be a perfect square. We cannot be sure about this, right? Any number ending with 1, 4, 5, 6, 9 may or may not be a perfect square. We are not very sure about this. Let's see how. For example, when I say 121, ठीक है, 121 की अगर हम बात करें, so 121 is basically a square of 11 because 121 is what? 121 is nothing but 11 multiplied by 11, right? So 121 is a square of 11 and therefore 121 is a perfect square. But when I take any other number, 131, right? Or if I take 651, all these three numbers are ending with 1, but that doesn't mean all of them are perfect square or all of them are not perfect square. That's why the property says this may or may not be a perfect square. So the first number we can see ends with 1, but a perfect square. The next two numbers again ends with 1, but they are not perfect square, right? So this is the rule. So numbers, similarly with other digits, like if I say like 4, any number that ends with 4, like 34, 100%, you know, here not a perfect square, but any other number, let's just say 144. 144 can be written as 12 into 12. So here 144 ends with 4 and a perfect square. 34 also ends with 4 but not a perfect square, right? I can take bigger numbers, no problem. 3484, right? That ends with 4, but I'm not sure about this. Why? Because we do not know the the numbers of like the square root of bigger numbers, so we need to check this by using our pen. But the reason why I chose some a small number so that I could tell you orally. So for 3484 I need to check this could be or could not be, we are not sure, and therefore we say numbers ending with 1, 4, and the other numbers that is remaining like 9, okay, 6, 5, they may or may not be a perfect square. So you do not have to remember, just make it very simple. Numbers ending with 2, 3, 7, and 8 are 100% not perfect squares. And if I talk about the rest of the digit, then numbers ending with any of those digits may or may not be a perfect square. Is that clear? Or in other words, I can say we do not have any rule or trick or method that just by looking at the number can clear that whether this number is a perfect square. No, we don't have any rule, right? But yes, the opposite is possible. Just by looking at the number, we have rules that just by looking at the numbers, we can be 100% sure that this number is not a perfect square. But we cannot be 100% sure about any number, using any rule or trick that this number is a perfect square. And therefore we say that number may or may not be a perfect square. Clear? So for one last time, numbers ending with 2, 3, 7, and 8, okay, are 100% not perfect square. And those numbers ending with the rest of the digits like 1 and like 4, 5, 6, 9, they may or may not be perfect square. Next property says, like, next property says, and this is about 0, because if you look at property number 1 and 2, then this is about digits from 1 to 9. So what is left? 0. So for 0, you can say numbers ending with odd number of zeros are again not perfect squares, 100% not perfect squares, right? Numbers ending with odd number of zeros are not perfect squares. But numbers ending with what? Even number of zeros. Property number 4, numbers ending with even number of zeros may or may not be perfect square. In other words, you can combine property number 1 and 3 together and 2 and 4 together. You can combine 1 and 3. First of all, have a look at 1 and 3. You can remember in one sentence that numbers ending with 2, 3, 7, 8 and odd number of zeros are not perfect square. So let me show you some examples. For example, like any random number and it has 1 0 in the end. So this number is 100% not a perfect square. Why? Because this number ends with odd number of zeros. Odd number of zeros means the number of zeros should be either 1 or 3 or 5 or 7 in the end of the number. We don't care about the rest of the digits, like we don't care about 4, 5, and 6. Just focus on the number of zeros in the end. Some other examples could be 782 triple zeros. So we do not have to check anything about 7, 8, and 2. Just look at the number of zeros in the end. And since the number of zeros in the end of this number is 3, which is odd, and therefore this number 782000 is 100% not a perfect square. And again, I'm saying If this number is not a perfect square, that means that this number cannot be expressed as the product of a number multiplied by itself, right? Similarly, some other examples, you can take anything, right? And then you just decide by the number of zeros in the end. If that is 5 zeros, again, 5 is an odd number. So since this number 7877 and 5 times 0 end with odd number of zeros, and therefore this is not a perfect square. Okay, so if I combine rule number 1 and 3, so I will say any numbers ending with 2, 3, 7, 8 and odd number of zeros are not perfect square. And similarly, when I combine property number 2 and 4, then I can say any number that ends with, 1 or 4, 5, 6, 9, and even number of zeros may or may not be perfect square. For example, if I take 100, right? So 100 can be written as 10 multiplied by 10. See, here there are two zeros. If I look at 100, there are two zeros in the end, meaning 2 is a, even. That's why this is a perfect square number. No, not that's why. I would not say that's why. Simply because we check that 100 is a perfect square. We are not, saying this is a perfect square because there are two zeros, right? Because as I said, even number of zeros, numbers ending with even number of zeros may or may not be a perfect square. Similarly, if I say like 400, so 400 can be written as 20 multiplied by 20. So here, since we know that 400 can be written as 20 multiplied by 20, and therefore 400 is what? A perfect square. But if I take another examples, like if I say 300 or any other number, any random number, like 3, 4, 2, 8, and then two zeros. Now I'm not sure. Not because this number is very big, because the rule says if it has even number of zeros in the end, we cannot be sure. So we need to check this, right? We need to see if this bigger number like 342,800 can be written as the product of a number multiplied by itself or not. If that is the case, then this is a perfect square. And if you cannot write it like that, then this is not a perfect square. But just looking at the number of zeros, you cannot say this is a perfect square. But in the first case, just looking by, at the number of, just looking at the number of zeros, you can say this number is not a perfect square, right? I'm taking some, smaller examples. I would say, for example, I'm taking some smaller examples like 30. See, or 300, because I'm talking about even number of zeros. So this number has two zeros, meaning it has even number of zeros in the ends, and therefore 300 may or may not be a perfect square. But if you remember, like if you already remember the square of first 20 numbers, you can see that it comes nowhere in between 1 and 20, because 19 square is 361 and 20 square is 400. So in between there is all the numbers in between 361 and 400 are not perfect square, and therefore 300 is also what? No, sorry, 18 square is 324 and 17 square is 289. So all those numbers in between 289 and 324 are not perfect square, and therefore 300 is not a perfect square. Okay. So basically, when you have even number of zeros, you have to check it. You cannot be very sure. If you already remember, very good. Otherwise, you have to check it. But if you have odd number of zeros, you can be 100% sure, directly. You don't need to check. Even if you check, the answer would be same. If you have odd number of zeros in the end, you can 100% say that this number is not a perfect square. Similarly, if you have 2, 3, 7, 8 in the end, you can be 100% sure without checking that this number is not a perfect square. But if you have rest of the digits, like if any number ends with 1, 4, 5, 6, 9, right? You cannot say that this number is perfect square 100%. You have to just check that number could be a perfect square and could not be a perfect square. Anything is possible. Okay, so next is, if I talk about the next property number 5 and 6, very simple. As I said, you do not need to pick, your pen to answer questions based on these properties. A square of odd numbers is always odd. A square of even numbers, next property, is always even. It's very simple, right? A square of odd numbers is always odd and a square of even numbers is always even. Meaning कि odd number, कोई odd number है, अगर हम उसका स्क्वायर करें तो आंसर भी odd ही होगा. कोई इवन नंबर है, उसका हम क्या करें, स्क्वायर करें तो उसका आंसर इवन ही होगा, राइट? इट्स वेरी सिंपल. For example, if I need to find like a square of 8, see, 8 is an even number, right? So what is the general meaning of squaring? Squaring means multiplying a number by itself, meaning 8 into 8, and that is 64. Okay, if I need to find a square of 8, and as I said, the general meaning of squaring means multiplying a number by by the same number, multiplying a number with itself. So square of 8 means 8 into 8. So the answer is 64. And by the way, you need to learn a square of first 20 numbers in order to save your time. So 8 square is 64, right? 8 square is 64. So 8 is an even number. The answer 64 is again an even number, and therefore a square of any even number is even. If I take some other examples, like square of 12, right? And a square of 12 would be 144. You need to remember a square of the first, square of the first 20 numbers. So square of 12 is 144. And therefore, 12 is an even and the square is also even. इसीलिए even का square even. And similarly, you can take any other numbers. I'm just taking examples, from within 20 numbers so that you could easily answer or you could easily understand. If I take like 14, right? Then a square of 14 is 19 and 6. 196, 196. So 14 is an even number and 196 is also an even number. And for those who don't know what is even number, numbers that can be completely divided by 2. Numbers divisible by 2. Completely divisible by 2 are even numbers. Completely divisible means when you divide that number, you get no remainder. The remainder is 0. And the next property, it says a square of odd numbers are odd. For example, I say a square of 5. So what is the square of 5? A square of 5 is 25. So see, it's very simple. 5 is an odd number. 25 is also an odd number. And therefore, a square of odd is odd. You can take other examples. A square of like 13, right? A square of 13. And that is 1, 6, and 9. It's very simple. 13 is an odd number. 169, the square of 13 is 169, and which is also an odd number. And so these two properties are very easy. The square of an even number is even and a square of an odd number is odd. Square number क्या है? Even number का स्क्वायर करेंगे तो आंसर भी even आएगा और odd number का स्क्वायर करेंगे तो आंसर भी odd आएगा. अभी तक 6 प्रॉपर्टीज हो गई, मैं उसको कंबाइन कर रहा हूँ. पहली प्रॉपर्टी, एक लाइन में अगर हम फर्स्ट और थर्ड को कंबाइन करें तो हम क्या कह सकते हैं कि वो नंबर्स, ठीक है, ऑल दोज नंबर्स एंडिंग विद 2, 3, 7 एंड 8 आर नॉट परफेक्ट स्क्वायर्स. कि वो सारे नंबर जो 2, 3, 7, 8 से एंड होते हैं वो परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नहीं है. एंड सिमिलरली ऑल दोज नंबर्स एंडिंग विद ऑड नंबर ऑफ जीरोस आर नॉट परफेक्ट स्क्वायर्स, राइट? All those numbers ending with 2, 3, 7 and 8 are not perfect squares, and all those numbers ending with odd number of zeros are again not perfect squares. Next to numbers ending with 1, 4, 5, 6 and 9 may or may not be perfect squares, and similarly numbers ending with even number of zeros may or may not be perfect squares. ठीक है? Next to a square of odd numbers are odd and a square of even numbers are even. We will see next property, that is property number 7. And what does this say? This is important. It says the sum of the first n odd natural numbers is n square, right? The sum of, kiska sum? The first n odd natural numbers is n square. First n, the word is first, right? We cannot take any random numbers. First we have to take only odd numbers, and then we have to take numbers starting from 1, meaning 1 should be included. एंड अगर हम उस सबको जोड़ें तो उन सबका सम n स्क्वायर के बराबर होगा. मैं इसको एग्जांपल से एक्सप्लेन करता हूं, लेकिन एक बार समझ लेंगे क्या कह रहा है, प्रॉपर्टी पढ़ लेंगे. द सम ऑफ द फर्स्ट n odd natural numbers is n square. Now let's see with an example. Okay, I'm adding some numbers, and as I said, you have to focus on the work, not only on odd but also on first. First means you have to start from the first odd numbers. You cannot start with 3. If you start with 3, you are already leaving 1, and this property will not satisfy, will not be satisfied. You cannot start with 5, because if you're starting with 5, first of all, what are the odd numbers? You already know. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and so on and so forth. So you have to start with 1, not with 3, not with 5, not with 7. You have to start with first. Okay, so I take numbers like 1 plus 3. So what is the answer? I will actually explain how that is n square. So 1 plus 3 is basically 4. It's very simple, and 4 can be written as a square of 2. Very simple. I'm going step by step. Similarly, if I take first 3 odd natural numbers, like if I say 1 plus 3 plus 5, I'm actually explaining the property. I'm taking first 3 odd natural numbers, and I'm taking sum of that. So what is 1 plus 3 plus 5? It's very simple. 1 plus 3 is 4, 4 plus 5 is 9. And 9 can also be written as a square of 3, right? Is that clear? A square of 3 is 9. Now, what if I take some more numbers, like 1 plus 3 plus 5 plus 7 plus 9? Now, someone might say that this is, a time consuming thing to add up all those numbers orally. And indeed it is. And that's why we have formula. But now let's try to add these. 1 plus 3 is 4, 4 plus 5 is 9, 9 plus 7 is 16, 16 plus 9 is 25. So what is this? This is 25. And 25 can also be written as square of 5, right? Now I'm taking some more, very 1 plus, like 1 plus 3 plus 5 plus 7 plus 9 plus 11 plus 13 plus 15 plus 17 plus 19 plus 21, and so on. Now this is really a very lengthy task to add up all those numbers. So I don't want to add up, but I want to write answers correctly and directly and orally. So how would I do that? In order to write the answer of this question, you need to focus on the first 3 examples. See, 1 plus 3, meaning when the numbers, when we had 2 odd natural numbers, the answer was a square of 2. 2, 2. When we had 2 natural numbers, 2 odd natural numbers, and again I would say first 2 odd natural numbers. The meaning of first here is we have to start with 1. If we leave 1, the property would be, false, wrong, but won't be satisfied. So focus on the pattern. How do you get that? If you had, in the first example, first 2 odd natural numbers, then their sum were equal to a square of 2. In the second example, if you had first 3 odd natural numbers, then their sum was equal to square of 3, 3, 3. If you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in example number 3, when you had first 5 odd natural numbers, then their sum was equal to square of 5. Similarly, if I want to answer the last question, last example, I would check how many first odd natural numbers I have. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Meaning this total is equal to a square of 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yes. And that can also be written as 121. Is that clear? And similarly, if you go by the property, now if I have n numbers and I want to add that, if I have first n odd natural numbers. If I have like 1, okay, 1 plus 3 plus 5 plus dot 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 dot, how many numbers? N numbers. Then what is the sum? N means any numbers. What is the sum? By the property, that is square of the number n, right? Square of n. Is that clear? So let's have a look at the property that says, property number 7, the sum of the first n odd natural numbers is n square, right? And we have so many questions on this property. I will show you one. For example, I was about to discuss this property in the end, but I have to show you now in order to, make it very clear. This is not working, I'm sorry. Okay, maybe this one or this one. Okay, here's the question. Look at this question. The question says, without adding, find the sum. And what is the question? 1 plus 3 plus 5 plus 7 plus 9, meaning the sum of first odd natural numbers. So in order to answer the first question, I need to check how many odd numbers are. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So answer is 5 square, which is 25, right? For the second question, first of all, I need to check whether all the numbers are odd. Yes, it is. Is this number starting with 1? Yes, it is. Because if these two conditions are not satisfied, the property would be false. So yes, all the numbers are odd. Clear? The number is starting with 1. And the numbers are in what? In order. It's not like starting, we started with 1, then we chose 3, then 5, then 7, and in between we dropped 9, and then we chose 11. No, that would be wrong. It should be in order, should be started with 1, and all the numbers should be odd numbers. In that case, their sum would be how much? 1. So just count the total numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So the answer would be 10 square, meaning 100. And similarly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So answer is 12 square, 144. Okay, and again I'm repeating, when you get questions like this, also this would be already like that, all numbers would be odd numbers and the number would be started with 1 and they would be consecutive, but just for the sake of safety, or for the sake of avoiding any kind of like mistake, you have to check whether all these numbers are are consecutive starting with 1 and all the numbers are odd. In that case, the answer is simply n square. ठीक है, तो ये है तरीका इस तरह के नंबर को आंसर करने का। लेकिन रूल क्या है कि सारे नंबर्स ऑड होने चाहिए, 1 से शुरू होने चाहिए और कंसेक्यूटिव होने चाहिए, लगातार होने चाहिए। ऐसा भी नहीं है कि कोई 1 से शुरू हो, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11 और बीच में 13 गायब है, फिर 15 आ गया, तब भी ये प्रॉपर्टी गलत हो जाएगी। ठीक है, so we have discussed so far 7 properties. Next property is a perfect square number, property number 8. A perfect square number always leaves remainder 0 or 1 when divided by 3 and 4 both, when divided by 3 and 4, कि कोई भी perfect square number, यहाँ पे कह रहा है कि perfect square number, meaning you do not need to check the numbers that would be given. Like if you already know that this number is a perfect square, then this property can be satisfied. पहले से पता है कि कोई नंबर परफेक्ट स्क्वायर है, तो उस नंबर को अगर हम 3 से डिवाइड करें तो या तो रिमाइंडर कुछ बचेगा ही नहीं, 0 बचेगा या 1 बचेगा, कुछ नहीं बचेगा, मतलब 0 बचेगा या फिर 1 बचेगा। और सेम विद 4, अगर कोई परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नंबर है उसको हम 4 से डिवाइड करें तो या तो रिमाइंडर कुछ नहीं बचेगा या 1 बचेगा, राइट? सो अ परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नंबर always leaves remainder 0 or 1 when divided by 3 and 4, right? Let's see some examples. For examples, I say, see, we're talking about perfect square numbers. I'm starting with some smaller numbers. 16, right? So 16, if we divide 16 by 4, what would be the answer? The answer would be 4, meaning no remainder. Clear? If 16 is a perfect square number, yes it is. If 16 is a perfect square number and we are dividing it by 4, then remainder would be 0, and that's what the property says. The property says if you divide, आसान हो रही है, थोड़ा वेट कर लेते हैं. Okay, back to the question. The property says if you divide, or if we divide any perfect square number with 3 or with 4, then the remainder would be either 0 or 1. And now we are seeing that property with some examples. So I have a perfect square number 16, and if I divide that by 4, I see that the remainder is 0. Similarly, if I have another perfect square number 25, and if I divide it by 4, see 4 6 are 24, meaning remainder is 1. In the first case, right, remainder was 0, and in the second case, what is the remainder? Remainder is, if I divide it by 4, then remainder would be 1. Okay, 16 and 25 both are perfect square numbers. Okay, first of all, let me show you some more examples, like 36. 6 6 are 36. 36 is a perfect square number. If I divide it by 4, 4 9s are 36, no remainder, meaning 0. And next example is 7 7s are 49. 7 7s are 49. 49, yes, it is a perfect square number. And if I divide it by 4, 4, 12 4s are 48. So remainder would be 1. Can you see the pattern? It would go like, if we, if we take in order, if we take perfect square numbers in order, so the order of remainder would be 0 1 0 1 0 1 alternative, right? So what the property says? The property says if you divide any perfect square number by 4, the remainder would be either 0 or 1, and we already actually saw this with example. अगर हम किसी भी perfect square number को 4 से divide करें तो remainder या तो 0 आएगा या तो 1 आएगा, वो हमने देख लिया. ठीक है, 16 क्या है, 16 क्या है, एक perfect square number है, 4 से divide किया कितना आया, 4 4 16, remainder कुछ नहीं आया, 0. इस तरह 25 भी परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नंबर है, जब मैंने उसको 4 से डिवाइड किया, 4 6 24, रिमाइंडर कितना आया, 1. 36 एक परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नंबर है, जब मैंने उसको 4 से डिवाइड किया कितना आया, 4 9 36, क्वोशिएंट इज 9 बट रिमाइंडर इज 0. 49 भी एक परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नंबर है, 7 7 49, जब मैंने इसको 4 से डिवाइड किया, 12 4 48, रिमाइंडर इज 1. So this is the case, and this is same if I choose the same number, perfect square numbers, but now my divisor is, instead of 4, if my divisor is 3, like again I'm taking 16, and if I divide 16 by 3, 3 5s are 15, my remainder would be 1. If I take 25, right, and if I divide 25 again by 3, 3 8s are 24, right? This is going to be what? 1. Next number, if I take like 36, 36, yes, 36 is a perfect square number. 36 is a perfect square number. If I divide 36 by 3, 12 3s are 36. What is the remainder? Nothing. And if I divide 23 by 3, what is the remainder? 3 8s are 24. Remainder is 1. Is this clear? If I take any other number, 49. The next number is 49. 49 is a perfect square number. And if I divide it by 3, 16 3s are 48. What is the remainder? 1. But if I take next perfect square number, for example, if I take 64, yes, 64, 8 multiplied by 8 is 64. 64 is a perfect square number. If I divide this number by 3, 60, right? So this is, remainder is going to be 0, right? No, 21 3s are 63, so remainder is 1. So no matter what, if the number is a perfect square number, your remainder would be either 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1. If I take, like next perfect square number like 81, 9 9s are 81, and if I divide it by 3, 27 3s are 81, remainder is 0, right? So no matter what, what the number is, if that number is a perfect square, and if we divide that number with 4 by 4, then our remainder would be either 0 or 1, depending upon the number, the square number that we take. Similarly, for any square number, if we divide any square number by 3, then remainder would be either 0 or 1, right? This is the property. Next property number 8 says, if we divide any perfect square number with 3 and 4, then the remainder would be either 0 or 1. That number would, leave remainder either 0 or 1. किसी भी perfect square number को अगर हम 4 से divide करें तो remainder या तो 0 बचेगा या 1. और इसी तरह से किसी भी perfect square number को अगर हम 3 से divide करें तो remainder again या तो 0 बचेगा या तो 1. ठीक है? यहाँ हमारा डिविडेंड क्या है, क्वोशिएंट क्या है, इससे कोई मतलब नहीं है. हमारा मतलब है डिवाइजर और रिमाइंडर. और डिवाइजर फिक्स है कि या तो 3 हो या 4 हो. रिमाइंडर फिक्स है कि या तो 0 आएगा या तो 1 आएगा. दिस इज द प्रॉपर्टी, राइट? So what is the next property? The next property says, property number 9. This is, very interesting and very simple as well. But this is, this is kind of pattern, and this is, valid for a similar kind of question. Imagine I want to find the square of all those numbers, let me show you by some example. If I need to find a square of 1, see, the answer is going to be 1. Very simple. If I take a square of 11, the answer is going to be what? 1 2 1. Easy. If I need to find like a square of 1 1 1, see, every time the number of digits is increasing. I'm just, this property or this property is valid only for those numbers, for finding the square of those numbers which contain only 1 1 1 1 1 as digits. Okay, and the number of ones could be n, 10 times 1, 12 times 1, 5 times 1, anything. But if there are only 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1, then you can find the square of those kind of numbers easily. Okay, like in the blink of an eye you can find this square. So now, square of 1 was easy. Square of 11 was also easy. What about the square of 1 1 1? This is going to be difficult, because if I multiply 1 1 1 by 1 1 1, 111 multiplied by 111, right? This is a time consuming thing, time consuming task. Similarly, if I need to find a square of 1 1 1 1 4 times, meaning 1111 multiplied by 1111. Again, this is a time consuming task, but I want to write the answer quickly and 100% correct. Similarly, one last example, a square of, let's just say, 7 times 1, 1 1 1 1 1 1 1, meaning 7 times 1 multiplied by 7 times 1. So how can I write answers quickly? See, again, number of ones. How many number of ones are there? How many one is there? 3. So you have to go like 1, 2, 3. Counting 1, 2, 3. And then you have to count down 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3. And then 2, 1. Similarly, if there are 4 times 1, then 4 times 1 multiplied by 4 times 1. So you have to count up to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then count down 3, 2, 1. That's the answer. अगर हम 1111 को या 1111 को 1111 से ही गुणा करें, मल्टीप्लाई करें, तो आंसर इतना बड़ा आएगा. ठीक है. Now 7 times 1 multiplied by 7 times 1. So 7 times 1, so we need to go up to 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we need to count down. Okay. So after 7, I will count down 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's the answer. If you do not, for example, if I want to verify this one, suppose I don't remember 11 square. So it has 2 1s. So I will go 1, 2, and then I will count down 1. So 1, 2, 1. That was very simple. So this is the pattern. So this property is valid to find a square of any numbers quickly, but for those numbers only that contains only 1. No many how many ones, right? If I have, like, I need to find a square of like 9 times 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Meaning 9 times 1 multiplied by 9 times 1. The answer is going to be in billion or trillion, but I have to write it quickly. I can write it like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then I will count down. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. इतना आसान है, ठीक है. And to everyone's surprise, ये question आया था, मतलब जैसे इंडिया में केबीसी होता है वैसे इंग्लैंड में होता है हु विल बी मिलियनेयर और हु वांट्स टू बी मिलियनेयर. और उसमें जो बच्चों का एपिसोड चल रहा था, सिर्फ स्टूडेंट्स का एपिसोड, उसमें एक क्वेश्चन पूछा गया था कि किस नंबर को किस नंबर से मल्टीप्लाई करने पर आंसर 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 8 7 6 5 4 3 2 1 आएगा. तो ऑब्वियसली हमें बस देखना है कि कितनी बार जाए. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, meaning 9 times 1 multiplied by 9 times 1. It's very simple, right? So for, in order to find the square of all those numbers containing the digit 1 only, no matter how many ones, this is the rule. That was your property number 9. Next property, which is property number 10. What is property number 10? Again, this is very easy. You just do not need to pick up your pen. This is very easy. To find the last digit, and if I have any number, first of all, I'll just have a look at property number 9, right? 1 square is 1, 11 square meaning 2 1, so 1 2 1. 3 times 1, 1 2 3, and 2 1, like 1 2 3 4 5, like, I guess, yes. In the last example, it has 8 times 1, so 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and then count down 7 6 5 4 3 2 1. Now move back to property number 10. What does this say? The property number 10 says, to find the digit in the square of any number, to find the last digit, just look at, any of the example. For example, I'm taking 111, 3 times 1. 3 times 1 multiplied by 3 times 1. And the question is, if I multiply 111 multiplied by 111, I'm taking any number. If I say like 12 multiplied by 12, 25 multiplied by 25, 33 multiplied by 33, and I just need to check, if I multiply 33 by 33, then what will be the last digit of the answer? Is that clear? If I say 7 multiplied by 7, then what will be the last digit of the answer, right? If I say, 205 multiplied by 205, then the answer will be bigger, but I don't, need to worry about that. I just need to check what will be the last digit of the answer, right? So I'm showing you with some example. If I have some numbers, like I say 47 multiplied by 47. See, the answer is going to be very long, and I don't need that. I don't need to worry about that. I just need to see, I just need to, find that what will be the last digit. So for that, you need to, square the last digit, or you just need to multiply these last digits. 47 multiplied by 47, what will be the last digit? Just square the last digit of 47. The last digit of 47 is 7. A square of that is 49. 49 is 4 9. So the last digit would be 9. I don't care about the answer. I just need to find the last digit. Similarly, for example, if I take smaller examples, 19 multiplied by 19. And the question is, I need to find the last digit in the answer, right? If I multiply 19 by 19, I will get an answer. And in that number, that answer, I need to find orally, or I need to find quickly that what will be the last digit. So simply, the last digit of 19 is 9. So simply multiply 9 by 9, or simply take a square of 9. A square of 9 is 81, and 81 is 81. So the last digit is going to be 1. And if you see, 19 multiplied by 19 is 361. So obviously the last digit is 1. So how did you find? You just take the last digit of a number, like last digit of the number 19, that is 9, and take a square of that. 9 square is 81, and 81, what is that number in the end of 81? 1, and therefore the number in the square of 19 would be 1. Similarly, you can do any number, 25 or 26 multiplied by 26. Suppose you don't know the answer, you just need to say what is the last digit of the answer. So 6, the last digit is 6. Take a square of that. 6 6 are 36. 36 meaning 3 and 6. So obviously the last digit is 6. By the way, the square of 26 is 676. 676. So you can see last digit is 6. So nobody will ask you the square of that number. Only you need to find the last digit of the number. Okay? तो ये प्रॉपर्टी क्या था कि किसी भी नंबर, कोई नंबर है, अगर उसका हम स्क्वायर करें तो जो आंसर आएगा उस आंसर का आखिरी डिजिट कौन सा होगा, जिसको हम कई बार यूनिट्स प्लेस भी कहते हैं या वंस प्लेस भी कहते हैं, तो वो आखिरी डिजिट कौन सा होगा। तो अगर 47 मल्टीप्लाई में 47 करना है, आंसर आपको ये पता नहीं है और ना ही आपसे पूछा जा रहा है, आपसे बस इतना पूछा जा रहा है कि आखिरी का डिजिट कौन सा है। तो आखिरी का डिजिट है 7, 7 का स्क्वायर ले लीजिए, 7 का स्क्वायर 49, और 49 का आखिरी डिजिट 9, इसीलिए 47 मल्टीप्लाई में 47 का जो भी आंसर होगा उसके आखिरी डिजिट में 9 आएगा। इसी तरह से 19 मल्टीप्लाइड बाई 19, आंसर आपको याद नहीं है मान लीजिए, और ना ही आपसे पूछा गया, आपसे सिंपली ये पूछा गया कि 19 को 19 से मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे तो जो आंसर आएगा उसका आखिरी डिजिट कौन सा होगा। सो सिंपली 19 का आखिरी डिजिट 9 है, तो 9 का स्क्वायर ले लेना है, 9 स्क्वायर 81, तो 81 का आखिरी कौन सा है 1। इसका मतलब हुआ कि 19 बाई 19 करने से जो भी आंसर आएगा उसके आखिरी में 1 होगा, पहले क्या है कोई मतलब नहीं। इस तरह 26 मल्टीप्लाइड बाई 26, मान लीजिए आपको आंसर याद नहीं है और अगेन ना ही आपसे पूछा गया है, बस इतना पूछा गया है कि 26 को 26 से मल्टीप्लाई करने पर जो आंसर आएगा उसका आखिरी का नंबर कौन सा होगा, डिजिट कौन सा होगा। ठीक है, तो 26 का आखिरी है 6, तो 6 का स्क्वायर 36, तो 36 के आखिरी में क्या आता है 6। इसका मतलब फिर 26 इंटू 26 करने से आखिरी में जो डिजिट आएगा उसके आंसर में वो 6 होगा। दिस इज वेरी सिंपल, राइट। Next property, property number 11, right? To find the product of two consecutive even or odd numbers. To find the product of two consecutive even or odd numbers. कि दो हमारे पास, अब यहाँ पे स्क्वायर नंबर वर्ड नहीं है, that number could be a perfect square or could not be a perfect square. This is valid, this is universal, valid for every single number. There are only two conditions. Those two numbers, first of all, should be, both numbers should be either even or both numbers should be either odd, right? If a pair of numbers and both should be even So you can say a pair of either even numbers or a pair of either odd numbers. You cannot take one even and one odd, right? So the first condition is if we have two consecutive even numbers or two consecutive. So first is even or odd, a second is consecutive. They could be consecutive. They should be consecutive. For example, two even numbers and consecutive even numbers. I will say 6 and 8. 6 and 8 are even and they are consecutive because the next number after 6 is 8. We cannot take 6 and 10. We cannot drop 8. We cannot take 6 and like 14. We cannot drop so many numbers. We have to take consecutive. If I take 14, then I need to take either 12 because 12, 14 are consecutive, or I need to take 16 because 14, 16 are consecutive. Similarly, if I take two consecutive odd numbers, I can take 3 and 5. I can take 5 and 7. I can take 7 and 9. I cannot take 3 and 9. I cannot drop 5 and 7. So this property, for in order to answer questions based on this property, you need to keep two conditions in mind. First, both numbers should be, first of all, either even or odd, and both should be consecutive. Or in simple language, you can say you should have two consecutive even numbers, or a pair of consecutive even numbers, or a pair of consecutive odd numbers. ठीक है? ये प्रॉपर्टी कह रहा है कि दो कंसेक्यूटिव इवन नंबर हो या दो कंसेक्यूटिव ऑड नंबर हो तो उनका मल्टीप्लिकेशन हम फौरन कैसे कर सकते हैं, एकदम बहुत जल्दी से हो रही, ठीक है? और याद रखें कि दोनों नंबर कंसेक्यूटिव इवन हो और या तो कंसेक्यूटिव ऑड हो. अगर हम ले रहे हैं 6 तो हमें 8 लेना पड़ेगा उसके साथ. हम 6 के साथ 10 नहीं ले सकते. अगर 10 ले रहे हैं तो 10 के साथ भी 8 लेना होगा क्योंकि 8 10 लगातार आते हैं, या 10 12 लगातार आते हैं. दोनों इवन है, दोनों लगातार. इस तरह से अगर हम ऑड नंबर ले रहे हैं तो हमें लेना पड़ेगा 11 और 13, 13 या 15, राइट. 21 एंड 23 दोनों क्या है, ऑड है, लगातार है. ठीक है, इसको हम समझेंगे अब कैसे इसका आंसर क्विकली दिया जा सकता है. सपोज पहले मैं स्टार्ट करता हूँ इवन नंबर से. अगर मेरे पास दो कंसेक्यूटिव इवन नंबर्स हैं 12 एंड 14. क्या है मेरे पास? 12 एंड 14. देख लेंगे सही से. दोनों इवन है, ऐसा ना हो कि एक इवन एक ऑड हो. दोनों इवन है और दोनों कंसेक्यूटिव है कि 12 के बाद जो नेक्स्ट इवन नंबर आता है वो 14 ही आता है. अब इसका मल्टीप्लिकेशन मुझे क्विकली करना है. नेक्स्ट एग्जांपल मेरे पास है 34 मल्टीप्लाइड बाय 36. ठीक है, 34 मल्टीप्लाइड बाय 36. दोनों इवन है, यस. 34 36 इवन है. क्या दोनों कंसेक्यूटिव है? तो यस, 34 के बाद 36 आता है. अब मुझे इसका आंसर क्विकली लिखना है क्योंकि हम स्क्वायर और स्क्वायर रूट पढ़ रहे हैं तो इन टर्म्स ऑफ स्क्वायर. ठीक है, तो कैसे लिखेंगे? पहला 12 और 14 के बीच में क्या आता है? पहले मैं ऑड भी ले लेता हूँ एक साथ क्योंकि सारे का आंसर एक ही तरह देना है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल आई हैव टू ऑड नंबर्स 15 and just obviously multiplied by the next number is 17, right? Similarly 89 multiplied by 91, right? The first two examples are of pair of consecutive even numbers and the next two example are the pair of two consecutive odd numbers. So how can I answer this quickly in the form of a square, because we are studying the chapter, the topic is square. See, so the number in between 12 and 14 is 13. So the answer is a square of 13 minus 1. Okay, answer will be a square of 13 minus 1. This is going to be answer. For example, a square of 13, a square of this is 169. A square of 13, उसमें से 1 माइनस कर देना है. इसी तरह से 34 मल्टीप्लाई बाय 36 का आंसर. सो व्हाट इज द नंबर इन बिटवीन 34 एंड 36? 35. सो द आंसर इज गोइंग टू बी a square of 35 and then minus 1 from this. Okay, whatever will be the answer, like the answer 35 का स्क्वायर ये हो गया आपको minus 1. This is the way of answering. Similarly 15 multiplied by 17. What is the number in between 15 and 17? 15 और 17 के बीच में नंबर कौन सा है? 16. The answer is going to be very simple. A square of 16 minus 1. 89 multiplied by 91. दोनों क्या हैं? Odd हैं. and these are consecutive numbers. So what will be the answer? We need to see the number in between 89 and 91. 89 और 91 के बीच का नंबर कौन सा है? 90. So आंसर कितना होगा? स्क्वायर ऑफ 90 और जो भी वो आएगा -1, right? Square of 90 minus 1. For example, square of 90 is very simple. That is 8100. If I do a square of 90, meaning 90 into 90, that is 8100, and then minus 1. So the answer is going to be 8099. Nobody will ask you 8099. You just need to write like this. Okay, 15 multiplied by 17, meaning the number in between 15 and 17 is 16. So square of 16, 256 minus 1, minus 1, and this is going to be 255. So just don't focus on the answer, right? Just follow the pattern. Is that clear? The property says to find product of two consecutive even numbers और टू कंसेक्यूटिव ऑड नंबर्स, दो लगातार इवन नंबर या दो लगातार ऑड नंबर का अगर हमें प्रोडक्ट निकालना है, मीनिंग उन दोनों को मल्टीप्लाई करना है, तो हम आंसर को इन टर्म्स ऑफ स्क्वायर कैसे लिखेंगे? तो ऐसे लिखेंगे, अगर दो लगातार हमारे पास इवन नंबर हैं जैसे कि 12 और 14, तो हम क्या कर सकते हैं? आंसर लिख सकते हैं 12 और 14 के बीच का नंबर देखेंगे विच इज 13, तो 13 स्क्वायर माइनस 1. इसी तरह 34 36 है, तो हाँ दोनों इवन है और लगातार हैं, तो इनके बीच में क्या आता है 34 36 के? 35, तो 35 का स्क्वायर माइनस 1. इस तरह 15 मल्टीप्लाइड बाई 17 करना है, तो 15 17 के बीच में क्या आता है? 15 17 के बीच में 16 आता है, तो 16 का स्क्वायर करेंगे, मतलब 16 इंटू 16 करेंगे, माइनस 1. इस तरह 89 मल्टीप्लाइड बाई 91 करना, तो हम क्या करेंगे? 89 और 91 के बीच में 90 आता है, तो 90 का स्क्वायर करेंगे, मतलब कि 90 इंटू 90 करेंगे, फिर उसमें से माइनस 1. राइट, दिस इज वेरी इजी. Next property, property number 12. Okay, property number 12, this is, you need to pay attention. Expressing a perfect square number as the sum of two consecutive natural numbers, right? Expressing a perfect square number as the sum of two consecutive natural numbers. मतलब कि अगर कोई perfect square number है, तो उसको हम अदर वर्ड में इस तरह लिखना है कि उसको हम उस परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नंबर को कैसे लिख सकें? दो नंबरों का सम, और वो दोनों नंबर कंसेक्यूटिव होने चाहिए. ये बहुत सिंपल है. रूल हम देखेंगे, क्योंकि छोटे नंबरों का तो ओरली हो जाएगा, बड़े नंबर में हम क्या होगा, परेशानी होगी, इसलिए हम रूल देखेंगे. सो द रूल सेज, फॉर एग्जांपल, लुक एट द फर्स्ट एग्जांपल, 3 स्क्वायर. पहले तो प्रॉपर्टी का मतलब समझेंगे कि इसमें करना क्या है. If we have a perfect square number, we have to write that number as the sum of two numbers such that both the numbers are consecutive. अगर कोई perfect square number है, तो उसको हमें क्या करना है? उस perfect square number को दो नंबर के सम के फॉर्म में लिख देना है, और वो जो दोनों नंबर हैं जिनका हम सम ले रहे हैं, वो दोनों consecutive लगातार होने चाहिए. For example, if I have 3 square, अब 3 स्क्वायर कितना होता है? 9. अब हमें 9 को ऐसे लिखना है कि दो नंबरों में तोड़ के लिख देना है कि दोनों को जोड़ने से 9 है, बट दोनों नंबर कंसेक्यूटिव होने चाहिए. सो 9 कैन बी रिटन एज 4 + 5, सिंपल. इसी तरह से अगर मेरे पास 5 स्क्वायर है, तो 5 स्क्वायर का मतलब 25. अब 25 को ऐसे लिखना है कि दो नंबरों को जोड़ने पे 25 आ जाए, लेकिन दोनों नंबर लगातार हो, 12 और 13, 12 और 13. लेकिन छोटे नंबरों के लिए तो ओरली हो जा रहा है. बड़े नंबरों के लिए हम क्या करें? मेरे पास आ जाए फॉर एग्जाम्पल 205 स्क्वायर, कैसे करूंगा मैं? 89, 35, 22 कैसे करेंगे? तो प्रॉपर्टी क्या कहती है, ये जैसे लास्ट वाला एग्जांपल देखिए, 7 स्क्वायर, ठीक है, 7 स्क्वायर, तब 7 स्क्वायर इज 49. तो हम क्या करें? 7 स्क्वायर इज इक्वल टू 49 को, तो 24 + 25. लेकिन हम ओरली कैसे करें? यहाँ पे दो प्रॉब्लम है. एक, क्या पता बड़े नंबर का हमें स्क्वायर याद ना हो, जैसे हमें 3 स्क्वायर 9 होता है, सिंपली याद है. We also remember that 5 square is 25, 7 square is 49. What about the numbers that we don't know the square of, right? If I say like 31 square or 30, sorry, I have spilled water. So if I say 31 square or 32 square, right? So see, here is the rule. You just do not need to take square. You simply focus on the number. 7 square, right? 7 square. So how can you write? What are those two numbers that I can write as, in the form of sum? So we will do, if I have 7 square, I will do 7 square minus 1 by 2. The first number is going to be, if in general, if that number is n, right? So n square minus 1 by 2, and the second number will be n square plus 1 by 2. For example, let's check this on 3. If I have 3 square, so what are those two numbers, those two consecutive numbers, whose sum is equal to 3 square? वो दो नंबर कौन से हैं कि जो कि लगातार भी हैं और जिनका सम 3 स्क्वायर के बराबर है? अब 3 स्क्वायर 9 होता है, मुझे याद नहीं है, कोई इशू नहीं, मुझे बस ये चेक करना है कि 3 स्क्वायर को मैं इस 3 स्क्वायर का जो भी आंसर है, एक पल के लिए हमें नहीं पता कि 3 स्क्वायर 9 होता है, क्योंकि बड़े नंबर भी आ सकते हैं। तो अगर 3 स्क्वायर को मैं कैसे लिखूं दो नंबर का सम, कि दोनों लगातार भी नंबर हो और दोनों का सम 3 स्क्वायर के बराबर हो, मतलब कि 9 के बराबर हो? तो वेरी सिंपल, पहला नंबर होगा 3 स्क्वायर माइनस 1 बाई 2, दूसरा नंबर होगा 3 स्क्वायर प्लस 1 बाई 2। पहला नंबर 3 स्क्वायर माइनस 1 बाई 2, दूसरा नंबर 3 स्क्वायर प्लस 1 बाई 2, यानी कि 3 स्क्वायर इज 9, 9 माइनस 1 इज 8, 8 बाई 2 4, तो पहला नंबर 4। 3 स्क्वायर प्लस 1 बाई 2, 3 स्क्वायर इज 9 एंड प्लस 1, 9 प्लस 1 इज 10, 10 बाई 2, 10 बाई 2 इज 5। इसका मतलब 3 स्क्वायर को हम ऐसे लिख सकते। इसी तरह से मुझे लिखना है, अगर मुझे लिखना है फॉर एग्जांपल 11 स्क्वायर, ठीक है, मुझे लिखना है स्क्वायर ऑफ 11 को इस तरह से लिखना है, किस तरह से लिखना है? सम ऑफ टू कंसेक्यूटिव नंबर्स। तो सपोज मुझे 11 स्क्वायर, अगर मुझे पता भी है कि 11 स्क्वायर 121 होता है, तो मुझे सोचने में थोड़ा टाइम लग सकता है कि वो दोनों नंबर कौन से हैं, कि जिनको जोड़ने से 121 तो आए, प्लस दोनों, लेकिन दोनों के दोनों कंसेक्यूटिव है। ये नहीं कह रहा है कि जोड़ने से 121 है, तो फिर हम 1 और 120 ले सकते हैं, 2 और 119, 3 एंड 118, 4 एंड 117, बहुत सारे आंसर्स हैं। यहाँ पे क्या कह रहा है कि इस तरह से उन दोनों नंबरों को जोड़ के, जो दोनों नंबर हैं जिनको जोड़ने से स्क्वायर ऑफ 11, यानी कि दोनों नंबर को जोड़ने से अगर 121 आना चाहिए, तो वो दोनों के दोनों नंबर क्या होने चाहिए? कंसेक्यूटिव। तो रूल क्या कहता है? पहला नंबर क्या होगा, मतलब मेरा आंसर होगा समथिंग प्लस समथिंग, ठीक है, सच दैट कि ये समथिंग प्लस समथिंग 121 के बराबर। क्लियर? अगर स्क्वायर ऑफ 121 होता है, तो मुझे इस 121 को कैसे लिखना है? दो नंबर में तोड़ के लिख देना है कि दोनों को ऐड करने से 121 आ जाए। बस यहाँ पे एक चीज ध्यान देना है कि वो दोनों नंबर कंसेक्यूटिव। तो अब मैं कैसे निकालूं? ठीक है, तो वेरी सिंपल, 11, पहला नंबर होगा 11 स्क्वायर माइनस 1 बाई 2। सो 11 स्क्वायर इज 121, 121 माइनस 1, 121 minus 1 is 120, and 120 by 2 is 60, is 60. So the first number is going to be 60. What is the second number? The rule for finding second number is n square plus 1 by 2, n square plus 1 by 2, n square again, n is my 11, because the square of 11, so n square, the square of 11 means my n, in general n, my n is 11. So 11 square, which is again 121, plus 1, 122, divided by 2 is 61. Okay, so my second number is going to be 61. Now you can see the square of 111 is 121, and sum of 60 and 61 is also 121, such that 60 and 61 are consecutive numbers. Is that clear? If I have, like, if I need to take, if I need to write a square of 17, right? If I need to write a square of 17 as sum of two consecutive numbers, first number plus second number, ठीक है, so that should be equal to square of 17, which is 289, right? And those two numbers, remember, should be consecutive. So how can I write that? So the first number is going to be n square minus 1 by 2, meaning 17 square minus 1 by 2. So 17 square is 289, minus 1, 288, and 288 by 2 is 144. And next, 289, n square plus 1 by 2. So 289 plus 1, 290, 290 by 2 is 145, right? So if you check that, the square of 17 is 289. Also, sum of 144 and 145 is 289, such that 144 and 145 are consecutive numbers. And there is a trick. For example, if I need to find square of, if I need to write the square of, let's just say 18, okay, as the sum of two consecutive numbers, first number plus second number, okay, and that will be equal to, again I'm reminding you, you need to remember the square of the first 20 numbers, okay, that will be really very beneficial, and that will save abundance, I mean a great amount of times. So square of 18 is 324. Now I need to write 324 as the sum of two numbers such that both the numbers are consecutive. And suppose I don't know the answer. So what would I do? I will take, for the first number, I will do n square minus 1 by 2. N square minus 1 by 2. My n is 18. So 18 square minus 1, 320. 18 square minus 1 by 2. So this is going to be, wait, seems like I'm making mistake. Is 18 square is 324. Yes. Yes. So I'm going to write 18 square minus 1 by 2 and 18 square plus 1 by 2. So this is going to be like, is 18 square 324? Yes. Okay. I'm sorry, and I'm confused. I need to take, I use my calculator. Mm, but this is going to be different. Yes, here is the trick. That's why I was getting confused. See, why did I, take so many times? I will tell you. This rule is valid for odd numbers only. That's why, I was stuck. Like, what's wrong? This is not valid for what? You cannot write this for even numbers. And that's why the answer, actually the answer was, coming into decimals, and I was confused. And that's, I remember, this is not true for even numbers. You cannot write. You can take another odd number, like you can take 15. So I need to write a square of 15 as, the sum of two numbers that should be equal to a square of 15, which is 225. So how can I write that? See, 15, for the first number, I will do n square minus 1, meaning 15 square minus 1, and 15 square is 225, and 225 minus 1 is 224, and 224 divided by 2 is 112. For the second number, I will do n square plus 1 by 2, meaning 15 square plus 1 by 2. So 15 square is 225, and 225 plus 1 is 226. 226 by 2 is 113. By the way, the trick is, when you find the first number, you just write the successor for the second number. The second number would be the successor of first. You just add 1. That's it. Okay? You just need to find the first one and then add 1 in the second one. For example, if I need to find a square of, let's just say, I need to write a square of 19 as the sum of two consecutive numbers. So what will be the numbers? The first one, 19 square is 361. The first number is n square minus 1 by 2. So 19 square minus 1 by 2. 19 square is 361. 361 minus 1 is 360. And 360 by 2 is what? 180. And the second number is going to be very simple. Just add 1. This is 181. So this is the rule. This is the property. What was the property? The property was saying to write, the square of an odd number as the sum of two consecutive numbers, right? Two consecutive natural numbers. So if I have a square of 11, a square of 13, 15, 17, 19, 21, only odd numbers. This is not, valid for even numbers. Because if you will do that for even numbers, answer would be in decimal, and we are talking about natural numbers only. We cannot take decimals or any negative numbers, nothing. So a square of 11, how can I write that a square of 11 as sum of two natural and consecutive numbers. So I can write 11 square minus 1 by 2, 11 square plus 1 by 2. So 11 square minus 1 is 120 minus 1, which is 120, and 120 by 2 is 60. For the second number, just add 1. Otherwise, the formula is n square plus 1, meaning 11 square plus 1, 121 plus 1 is 122 divided by 2 is 61. That's the rule, right? This is very simple. Next property. I guess we are left with the last property. See, you need to pay attention for this, okay? The last property says to find all those numbers, first of all, understand you have two square numbers, right? You have 5 and you have 7. And you have to take first of all a square. 5 square and 7 square. You have 5 square, 7 square, or you have 11 square, 13 square, consecutive, right? You have 11 square and 13 square. Now, for example, 7 square is 49. 7 square is 49, and 49 is a perfect square number. Let me show you with an example. See, let's just say I have a square of 7, which is going to be 49, okay, and 49 is a perfect square number. And then I have a square of 9, okay, which is going to be 81. Clear? Square of 7 and a square of 9. Sorry, a square of 7 and a square of 8, consecutive numbers. A square of 7 and square of 8, right? See, 49 is a perfect square number. 64 again is a perfect square numbers. And the question here is, how many numbers lie in between 49 and 64? Right? Like all the numbers 50, 51, 52, 53, up to 63. Now the point is, if the numbers are really big, are we going to count on our fingers? No. Right? First of all, understand the question. A square of 7 and a square of 8. I need to find all the numbers that lie in between the square of 7 and a square of 8. Or in other words, I need to find all the numbers in between 49 and 64. Right? 7 का स्क्वायर 49 होता है, 8 का स्क्वायर 64 होता है. तो 49 और 64 ये दोनों परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नंबर्स हैं. अब 49 और 64 के बीच में जितने भी नंबर्स हैं उन सबको बताना कि कितने होंगे ये बताना बस. लाइक 10 होंगे, 5 होंगे, 8 होंगे, 20 होंगे, कितने होंगे ये बताना. और हम इसे बिना गिने बताएंगे. अगर हम काउंट करने, एक एग्जांपल समझाने के लिए मैं काउंट करता हूं. how many numbers would I have? I would have 50, right? And then 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62 and 63, right? 49 and 64 के बीच में इतने नंबर्स आएंगे. अब हम क्या इसे बैठ के गिने? एक एग्जांपल, फॉर एग्जांपल 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 14 नंबर्स हैं. अब हम हर बार तो गिनेंगे नहीं. For example, let's just say my next example is how many numbers lie in between a square of, just say 75 and a square of 76. Square of 76. Make sure we take consecutive numbers 75, 76, 7 and 8. Now the square of 75 is something, a square of 76 is something, and those are big numbers. So how many numbers are there in between the square of 75 and 76? I will not count them, right? I will directly write the answer. So how can I write the answer? See, first of all, you need to see the smaller number in between these two. You know, if these two numbers are given 7 and 8, so which one is the smaller? 7. So you just take the double of 7, that is 14, that is the answer. You know, how many numbers lie in between the square of 7 and a square of 8? In other words, how many numbers lie in between 49 and 64? 49 64 के बीच में कितने नंबर आएंगे? तो हमें ये देखना है कि 7 और 8 जो है, जिसका स्क्वायर हम ले रहे हैं, 7 का स्क्वायर 8 का स्क्वायर, तो उसमें छोटा कौन? 7. 7 का डबल, छोटे वाले का डबल 14. इसी तरह से मैं कहूँ कि 75 का स्क्वायर करें, कुछ आंसर आएगा. 76 का स्क्वायर करें, कुछ आंसर आएगा. ठीक है. जैसे तो वो जो भी आंसर आएगा उन दोनों के बीच में कितने नंबर्स आएंगे, तो मुझे क्या करना है, छोटे वाले का डबल, 75 का डबल 150, clearly 150. Next, if I need to find all the numbers, like I need to find all the numbers in between the square of, let's just say 14 and square of 15. Okay, I need to find all the numbers that lie not between 14 and 15, between a square of 14 and a square of 15, right? So square of 14, 196. Let's just say I don't remember. A square of 15, let's just say I don't remember, 225, right? So in between 144 and 220, square of 14, 196 and 225. Like how many numbers are there in between 196 and 225? So I don't need to count on my fingers. I will simply take double of the smaller number. So answer is going to be double of smaller means double of 14 here. That is 28. Is that clear? This property was about finding all the numbers that lie in between the square of two consecutive numbers. Okay, this property was about finding all the numbers that lie in between the square of any two consecutive numbers. कोई भी दो consecutive numbers का square लेंगे हम, ठीक है, जैसे मैंने ले लिया 7 और 8 दोनों consecutive है, लगातार है, उन दोनों का square 49 और 64. अब मुझे ये देखना है कि इन दोनों के बीच में कितने नंबर आते हैं. इतना पता है कि 50 से लेके 63 तक होंगे क्योंकि 49 की जस्ट नेक्स्ट और 64 का जस्ट पहले, इसी तरह 75 और 76. तो मुझे ठीक है, जो भी आंसर आएगा 40, जैसे मुझे उसका जैसे 14 का ले लूँ मैं 196, तो 196 का नेक्स्ट 197, 197 से शुरू होते 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 कहाँ तक, 15 का स्क्वायर अगर 225 है तो उसके जस्ट पहले तो 224, अभी कितने होंगे, तो हमें डायरेक्ट आंसर देना है. ठीक है, तो क्या करना है, अगर मुझे करना है कि 7 के स्क्वायर और 8 के स्क्वायर के बीच में यानी कि 49 और 64 के बीच में कितने नंबर्स आएंगे, तो मैं क्या करूँगा, छोटे वाले का डबल यानी कि 7 का डबल, एंड दैट इज गोइंग टू बी, ये होगा आपका 14. क्लियर है? इस तरह से हमें निकालना है, वी नीड टू फाइंड all the numbers that is in between the square of 75 and 76, right? So that will be double of the smaller number. Here the smaller number out of 75 and 76 is 75. यहाँ पे 75 और 76 में छोटा कौन, 75, तो उसका डबल होगा 150. तो इसका मतलब कि अगर हम 75 का स्क्वायर करें और 76 का भी स्क्वायर करें और जो आंसर आए, ठीक है, तो उनके बीच में 150 नंबर्स आएंगे टोटल. ठीक है, इसी तरह से लास्ट वाला. Now you need to focus on one thing, that all the numbers that lie in between the square of two perfect square numbers. See, a square is coming two times here, so don't be confused. All the numbers that lie in between the square of two perfect square numbers are not perfect squares. This is kind of confusing, right? I'm repeating once again. All the numbers that lie in between the square of two numbers, right? All the numbers that lie in between the square of two perfect square numbers are not perfect squares. कि अगर दो perfect square numbers हैं, ठीक है, जैसे 49 और 64 perfect square है, ये ऐसे कह लीजिए इसको और इजी कि all the numbers lying in between two perfect square numbers are not perfect square. कि दो perfect square number हैं, उनके बीच में जितने आएंगे ना वो perfect square नहीं होंगे. All the numbers lying in between two perfect square numbers are not perfect square. कि हर वो नंबर, जितने भी नंबर हैं जो दो परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नंबर के बीच में हैं वो परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नहीं है, राइट? अगर 49 और 64 दो परफेक्ट स्क्वायर हैं तो इनके बीच में आने वाले जितने भी नंबर है 50, 51, 52 यानी कि जो 14 नंबर्स हैं 50 से लेके 63 तक ये जो 14 नंबर्स हैं इनमें से कोई भी परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नहीं होगा. ठीक है, अगर इसी तरह से मान लीजिए 14 का स्क्वायर 196 हो रहा था, ठीक है, और 15 का स्क्वायर मान लीजिए 225 हो रहा था. तो इन दोनों के बीच में कितने नंबर आएंगे सबसे पहले ये पता करना है। तो 196 से 225 के बीच में कितने आएंगे। तो ट्रिक क्या है, जिन दो छोटे नंबर का स्क्वायर लिया था, छोटे वाले का स्क्वायर, छोटे वाला 14 तो उसका डबल 28। तो कहने का मतलब ये है कि 196 से 225 के बीच में जितने भी नंबर आएंगे ना, 197, 198 अप टू 224, इनमें से कोई भी परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नहीं होगा। ये सारे के सारे 28 नंबर्स परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नहीं होंगे। सो ऑल द नंबर्स lying in between two perfect square numbers are not perfect square। कि दो परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नंबर्स के बीच में जितने भी नंबर हैं वो परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नहीं होंगे, राइट। दैट्स द रूल। So here all the properties ends, and somebody might bring some other, like we can add like a few more properties, that is okay. So for now I have 13 properties, and that's a rule. See, the last property says to find non-square numbers. Why did I say non-square? Because all the numbers in between two perfect square numbers are not perfect square. So they are non-perfect square or simply non-square. Between square numbers, right? Actually, you can say square numbers or perfect square numbers, both are same. So we need to find all the non-square numbers, or simply we can say we need to find all the numbers that would obviously be non-square. So we need to find all the numbers in between two square numbers. So here this is general form. If I have x and y, if somebody cannot understand this in general form, then I have given example. If there are two numbers, let's just say generally x and y, such that one is lesser than other, smaller than other. For example, I say here I consider, it's your choice. You can consider any two, any one to be smaller than the other. Here I have taken, I have just considered that x is less than y. So how many numbers are there? Remember, double of a smaller ones. If I say x and y are two numbers such that x is less than y, meaning I'm considering that x is smaller. So how many numbers would be there in between the square of these two? Like x का square और y का square जब हम करें तो उसके बीच में कितने आएंगे? तो छोटे वाले का डबल। तो और मैंने यहाँ पे छोटा किसको माना है? x को, 2x। वही एग्जाम्पल यहाँ पे मैंने आपको क्या किया, दिखाया था। ठीक है, कि अगर 7 का स्क्वायर और 8 का स्क्वायर करना है, मुझे 7 और 8 का स्क्वायर करना है 49, 64। अब मुझे देखना है कि 49, 64 के बीच में ऐसे कितने नंबर हैं जो, बस कितने, पहले ये देख लें। वो अलग बात है कि वो जितने भी होंगे वो परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नहीं होंगे, राइट। लेकिन सिंपल टर्म में पूछे तो पहले तो हम ये देखें कितने होंगे वो। तो छोटे वाले का डबल, स्क्वायर ऑफ 7 49, स्क्वायर ऑफ 8 64। मुझे ये पता लगाना है कि 49 और 64 के बीच में कितने नंबर होंगे, या इन सिंपल वर्ड 7 स्क्वायर और 8 स्क्वायर के बीच में कितने नंबर होंगे। तो 7 का डबल, क्योंकि 7 और 8 के बीच में 7 छोटा है। यहाँ पे 75 और 76 का अगर स्क्वायर करें तो उनके बीच में कितने नंबर आएंगे। तो 75 76 में छोटा 75 है, उसका डबल यानी कि 150। यहाँ 14 का स्क्वायर और 15 का स्क्वायर, इसका जो भी आंसर आएगा उन दोनों के बीच में कितने नंबर्स होंगे। तो यहाँ पे 14 और 15 में छोटा कौन? 14। तो छोटे वाले का डबल, 14 का डबल 28। I hope that is clear. Now that I'm done with all the properties, I have a few questions. Okay, and we have to try to answer all of them, or if not all of them, then at least most of them orally, because most of the properties are easy. You have to remember this, because for this chapter, for this chapter square and square roots, the properties are like everything. The properties are like, for other chapters you remember formulas, here you have to remember properties, because most of the question, if you prefer NCERT, then in 6.1 most of the questions are based on what? Properties. And by the way, even if you remember all the like properties, this is just 25% of the whole chapter. So keep patient, this chapter is very long. First of all, you are studying square, and there are there are some more concepts. Square is not done yet, right? Not the properties, we are done with the properties, but we have some more concepts like Pythagorean triplets and how do we find the square of bigger numbers. That's it. When we will study these these 2 points, then half of the chapter, meaning the square part, would be completed. And then we will we will also study the second half, that is square roots. But for now 25% is completed, right? So we have some questions and we have to try to answer most of them orally. ठीक है, तो हम मैंने क्या बताया कि स्क्वायर और स्क्वायर रूट, अभी स्क्वायर पूरी तरह से खत्म नहीं हुआ, एक तरह से देखें तो 25% चैप्टर का खत्म हो गया। अब हमें दो टॉपिक और पढ़ना है, एक होता है पाइथागोरियन ट्रिपलेट और एक पढ़ेंगे हम कि बड़े नंबर का स्क्वायर कैसे निकालेंगे। मतलब सिंपली हम स्क्वायर का मतलब ये नहीं कि दैट नंबर मल्टीप्लाई बाय दैट नंबर, तो एक जनरल है कि उस प्रोसेस का नाम स्क्वायरिंग है, बट ऑब्वियसली 8th क्लास में अब आपको कहे 79 का स्क्वायर और 79 इंटू 79 कर दीजिए और दो नंबर दे दे, ऐसा तो होगा नहीं। तो बड़े स्क्वायर का नंबर, बड़े जो नंबर्स हैं उनका स्क्वायर हम a प्लस बी द होल स्क्वायर या a माइनस बी द होल स्क्वायर जरूरत के हिसाब से यूज करके निकालेंगे, राइट। और पाइथागोरियन ये जब पढ़ लेंगे तब जाके हाफ चैप्टर यानी कि स्क्वायर पार्ट कंप्लीट होगा, फिर हम स्क्वायर रूट्स पढ़ेंगे। Okay, so now based on all we have some questions based on all the properties that we have studied just before a while, so we're going to do questions. Okay, so first question, try these. Can we say whether the following numbers are perfect squares? How do we know, right? The very first property, the very first four properties, right? The very first four properties. Can we say whether the number are perfect square? And if I combine the very first two properties into, I know, like if I divide the very first four properties into two, then what are those two properties? Just revise this. All the numbers ending with 2, 3, 7, 8, and odd number of zeros are 100% not perfect squares, right? All the numbers ending with either 2 or either 3 or 8 or 7, 2, 3, 7, 8, and odd number of zeros are not perfect squares. And the second property, all the numbers ending with the remaining digits like 1, 4, 5, 6, 9, and even number of zeros may or may not be perfect square, meaning we need to check. But in the first case, we do not need to check. Even if we check, the answer would be the same. So we have to be 100% sure कि हर वो नंबर जो 2, 3, 7, 8 या ऑड नंबर ऑफ जीरोस, मतलब किसी नंबर के आखिरी में जो जीरोस हैं वो ऑड हो, ऑड नंबर हो, जैसे 1 जीरो हो या 3 जीरो हो या 5 जीरो, तो ये सारे नंबर 200% क्या है, परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नहीं है। बाकी केस मे और मे नॉट बी। बाकी केस का मतलब अगर किसी नंबर के आखिरी में या तो 1 हो या 4, 5, 6, 9 या जीरोस कैसे हो, इवन नंबर ऑफ जीरोस, मतलब किसी क्वेश्चन के आखिरी में तो 2 जीरो लगे हों, किसी नंबर के आखिरी में 2 जीरो, 4 जीरो, 6 जीरोस, तो वो हो भी सकते हैं, नहीं भी हो सकते। सो बेस्ड ऑन दैट वी गोना डू, and it asks the reason, right? If you say yes or no, then how do we know? The question says how do we know. So the first question, we just need to focus on the last digit. The last digit is 7, and if you remember the property, number ending with 2, 3, 7, 8, and odd number of zeros are not. So this number ends with 7, and that's why 1057 is not a perfect square. If we need to write the reason, then how do we know? So we will say, because we will say this number is not a perfect square because it ends with 7. Similarly, again, second part, no matter how many digits are there, just focus on the last digit. Numbers ending with 2, 3, 7, 8, and odd number of zeros are not perfect square. So meaning this number is ending with 3, and if you remember the property, this is not a perfect square. Reason, this number ends with 3. Similarly, 8, this number ends with 8, not a perfect square. This number ends with 2, not a perfect square. 9, 2, 3, 7, 8, odd number of zeros. For the rest of the case, we need to verify. We don't know. For the second one, it says, are these numbers perfect? We don't need to verify because we have to answer in yes or no. So here we will say for question number 5, it may or may not be a perfect square. And the reason would be because it ends with 9 or it doesn't end with 2, 3, 7, 8 or odd number of zeros. Last part, this number ends with 1. Again, we cannot be sure, right? And we do not have to solve this. So because we have to answer in yes or no. So we will say this number may or may not be a perfect square. So for the first 4 case, this question has 6 parts. So for the first 4 case, we will say these numbers are not perfect square. As I said, we have a rule to say just by looking at the numbers that whether it is a perfect square or whether it is not a perfect square, right? That this is not a perfect square. But we do not have any rule to just say by looking at the number that this is a perfect square. हमारे पास ये रूल तो जरूर है कि हम नंबर को देखते ही बता देंगे कि नहीं है 100%, बट ऐसा कोई रूल नहीं है, राइट, जिससे हम कह सके कि परफेक्ट स्क्वायर है। हमारे पास एक ही केस है कि हो भी सकता है, नहीं हो सकता, ठीक है। तो पहले फॉर द फर्स्ट 4 केसेस Those numbers are not perfect square. Reason being, the first one ends with 7, the second one ends with 3, the third one ends with 8, the fourth one ends with 2, and then 5, 5th, and 6th, they may or may not be. Okay, let's come on this question. All the questions are based on properties. Simple. All the questions are based on properties. Very simple, right? We have studied 13 properties here, and all the questions either based on all the 13 properties or less than 13, but all are based on properties. So that means in order to do these kind of questions, you need to remember all the properties, and also please remember a square of first 20 natural numbers. ठीक है, सारे के सारे क्वेश्चंस प्रॉपर्टी पे बेस्ड हैं. हमने 13 प्रॉपर्टीज पढ़ी. या तो 13 के 13 प्रॉपर्टीज यहाँ यूज हो जाएंगे या कम होंगे, उससे ज्यादा नहीं होंगे. हालांकि एक दो प्रॉपर्टी और अगर कोई चाहे तो ऐड कर सकता है, और भी है. और दूसरी इसलिए इस तरह के क्वेश्चन करने के लिए जरूरी है कि आपको सारे प्रॉपर्टीज याद हो. साथ ही साथ ये रिकमेंडेड है कि पहले 20 नंबर की प्रॉपर्टी याद हो, 20 नंबरों का स्क्वायर याद हो. The second question has 6 parts. The first part say the question says, first of all, what will be the ones digit? Okay, ones digit or units, the digit at units place, or you can also say last digit. So what will be the ones digit in the square of the following numbers? Remember the property. Like I have a question 1, 2, 3, 4. And we need to find the last digit in the square of this number. Like I say, I do 1, 2, 3, 4 multiplied by 1, 2, 3, 4. So the answer is going to be something. But what will be the last digit of the number? So for that, what was the property? Just square the last digit. 4 square, 16. And what is the last digit in 16? 6. Meaning 1234 multiplied by 1234 is equal to something, but that something will end with 6. Similarly, with the second question, I don't, worry, and I need to worry about rest of the digits. If I need to find the last digit in the square of 26387, I will just take the square of last digit. Here, the last digit is 7. The square of 7 is 49. So the last digit is going to be 9. For the third question, the square of last digit is 8 square is 64. So last digit is 4. And therefore, when we multiply 52,698 multiplied by 52,698, the answer would be something. And the last digit of that, answer, that number would be 4. Because here, 8 square is 64, so the last digit is 4. Similarly, in question number 4, 0 square is also 0. So then, in fourth question, the last digit will be 0. In fifth part, 2 square is 4. So the last digit of the number answer would be 4. Here the last digit is 6. 6 square is 36, and is still 6. So therefore when we'll take a square of 9106, that will be a number, and that number will end with 6. Clear है? जैसे कोई भी नंबर ले लें हम, जैसे 1 2 3 4 है. 1 2 3 4 का अगर हमें स्क्वायर करना है तो कुछ आंसर आएगा. हमें उस आंसर से मतलब नहीं है, हमें ये देखना है कि उस आंसर का आखिरी डिजिट क्या होगा. तो उसके लिए हमें कुछ नहीं करना है, क्वेश्चन के आखिरी डिजिट का स्क्वायर ले लेना है. तो 4 का स्क्वायर 16 मतलब कि 6. दैट्स इट. ऐसे ही करना है. जैसे फोर्थ पार्ट, फिफ्थ पार्ट, जैसे 21,222 का स्क्वायर करना है, कुछ आंसर आएगा, हमें उससे कोई मतलब नहीं आंसर क्या आएगा, बस हमें ये पता लगाना है कि उस आंसर का आखिरी नंबर क्या होगा. तो उसके लिए हमें क्वेश्चन का जो आखिरी डिजिट है ना, उसका स्क्वायर कर लेना है. तो 2 का स्क्वायर 4, मतलब कि जब 21,222 को 21,222 से 21,222 को 21,222 से मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे तो जो आंसर आएगा उसके आखिरी में 4 है. Moving on to the next question. Okay, the next question says, the square of which of the following numbers would be an odd number or an even number? Why? Again, property number 5 and 6 combined. What does it say? That property says, a square of an odd number is odd, a square of an even number is even. So the question is, the square of which of the following numbers would be odd or even? See, just look at the number. If the number is odd, its square is going to be odd. If the number is even, its square is going to be even. As simple as that. So first question, 727, odd or even? Odd. So its square is odd. The reason is why we will write, because this is an odd number, and a square of an odd number is odd. Second question, 158, even number. So its square is going to be even. Third number, 269. Just look at the number. This is an odd number. How do you check? The last digit. If the last digit is not divisible by 2, right? That is odd, if the last digit is divisible by 2, that is even. So 269 is an, this is for those who have confusion in odd and even. Otherwise, if you're good with odd and even, then you easily know the number. So 269 is an odd number, so its square is going to be odd, right? The reason is because this is because 269 is an odd number. Fourth part, 1980, this is an even number, so the square is going to be even. Very simple. So the first question is based on property of odd and even numbers, right? And what does it say? For one last time, a square of odd numbers are odd, square of even numbers are even. odd नंबर का स्क्वायर ऑड होता है, इवन का इवन होता है. पूछा जा रहा है तो हम देखेंगे नंबर ऑड है तो उसका भी स्क्वायर ऑड होगा, जिसका नंबर जो नंबर इवन है उसका स्क्वायर भी इवन होगा. मूविंग ऑन टू द सेकंड क्वेश्चन. What will be the number of zeros in the square of the following numbers, right? अब ये भी बहुत सिंपल है. जैसे अगर हम 60 का स्क्वायर करें तो क्या होगा? अगेन अब देखिए ये क्वेश्चन, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल दिस इज लाइक दिस वन फॉर फाइंडिंग द लास्ट डिजिट, but it says number of zeros. Okay, not the last digit, number of zeros. See, I'm just explaining it on a smaller on simple numbers. This is for all the numbers that ends with 0. If I have 40 multiplied by 40, so the question is, how many zeros would be there in the answer? See, how do you find? 4 multiplied by 4 is 16, and in multiplication zeros are added, 1 0 and 1 0, 2 0. So if you take a square of 40, meaning you would have double zero. Square of 40, which is obviously equal to 40 into 40. So how many zeros would be there? Just take double of the last digit. If there is 1 0 in 40, then there would be 2 zeros in its answer, in its square, right? If I have to take like 500, like a square of 500, meaning 500 into 500, if I need to take a square of, if I have a square of 500, and the question is, how many zeros would be there in the square of 500, right? So if there are 2 zeros in 500, then there would be double, meaning 4 zeros in the square of 500, right? Because the square of 500 meaning, see, the square of 500 means 500 into 500. And how do you do it quickly? 5 multiplied by 5, you multiply the digits, except for the zeros, that is 25. And what about zeros? In multiplication, zeros are added, 2 and 2, 4. Right? But in order to do it quickly, how do you do this? It has one, what will be the number of zeros? What will be the number of zeros in the square of the following numbers? So in 60, we have 1 0. So there will be 2 zeros in its square. In 400, there are 2 zeros. So there will be double, 4 zeros in its square. That's it. Last slide for today. First question. Express the following number as the sum of two consecutive integers. Remember the property? We had a square number, right? And we had to write the square of that number as the sum of two consecutive numbers. I'm reminding you the property once again by an example. For example, if I have okay, like if I have square of 9, this is only valid for odd numbers, then a square of 9 is something. Let's just say I don't know. But I have to write that answer, meaning the square of 9, as a sum of two consecutive numbers. So what was that? 9 square minus 1 by 2, and then add 1 for the next number. Otherwise, for the first number, you can do 9 square minus 1 by 2. Second number, 9 square plus 1 by 2. For the first number, 9 square minus 1 by 2, meaning 9 square is 81. 81 minus 1 is 80. 80 by 2 is 40. So the first number is going to be 40 plus the second number. Either you can add just 1, or going by the rule, you can say 9 square plus 1 by 2, meaning 81 plus 1 by 2. 81 plus 1 in the numerator is 82, divided by 2 is 41, right? That was the property. and that's the question. So 21 square can be written as the sum of two consecutive integers. 21 square minus 1 by 2. The second number would be 21 square plus 1 by 2. So 21 square is 441. 441 minus 1 is 400. I'm taking this example like 21 square. If I have like 21 square, how can I write 21 square? If I have square of 21, how can I write this as a sum of two consecutive integers? First number plus second number, such that both numbers should be consecutive and their sum should be equal to square of 21, which is 441. So how do you find the first number? For first number, you do 21 square minus 1 by 2. General formula says n square minus 1 by 2. Here your n is 21. So 21 square minus 1 by 2. So 441 minus 1 by 2, meaning 440 by 2, 220. Right? And to save your time, for the second number, you just add 1 here, meaning 2 to 1. That's it. Right? So I'm coming back to the question. 13 square minus 1 by 2, 13 square plus 1 by 2. 11 square minus 1 by 2, 11 square plus 1 by 2. That's the answer. If we add both the numbers, that would be equal to 11 square. अगर मैं 11 square को कैसे 11 square का आंसर होगा 121. मुझे इस 121 को इस तरह से लिखना है, दो नंबरों का सम 121 है, दोनों नंबर कंसेक्यूटिव, मतलब मुझे दो ऐसे कंसेक्यूटिव नंबर ढूंढने हैं जिनका सम 121 हो जाए. राइट? 11 स्क्वायर इज 121. अब इस 121 को मुझे ऐसे लिखना है such that I need to write 121 as the sum of two consecutive natural numbers. तो क्या कर सकता हूं मैं? सोचना तो है नहीं, टाइम लगेगा. So first number is 11 square minus 1 by 2 and second number is 11 square plus 1 by 2. और first number is 11 square minus 1 by 2 और दूसरे नंबर के लिए आप क्या कर सकते हैं, उसमें सिंपली 1 ऐड कर दीजिए. So 11 square minus 1 by 2 मतलब 121 minus 1 by 2, तो वो हो जाएगा 120 by 2 which is 60 और दूसरा नंबर 61, यानी कि 60 और 61 ऐसे दो नंबर हैं जो कंसेक्यूटिव हैं. ऑब्वियसली 60 and 61 लगातार दोनों को जोड़ने से 121. Next question. This is based on the very last property, property number 13, according to the slides that I discussed today. How many natural numbers lie in between the square of 9 square and 10 square? Next, between a square of 11 and a square of 2, right? If I have square of 9 and a square of 10, and how many numbers would be there? Property. If you remember the property, the very last property, right? So how will you solve this? Remember this double of the smaller one. The first question says, we have a square of 9, square of 9, and we have a square of 10, and we need to find all the numbers that lie in between these two. So direct answer, smaller of double of a smaller number. Here out of 9 and 10, 9 is smaller, and therefore the answer would be double of 9, which is 18. ठीक है? स्क्वायर ऑफ 9 और स्क्वायर ऑफ 10 के बीच में पूछा जा रहा है कितने नंबर आएंगे. वो अलग बात है कि सारे के सारे परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नहीं होंगे, और अभी उससे मतलब ही नहीं है वो नंबर कितने होंगे. तो कैसे पता लगाएंगे? 9 और 10 में जो मतलब जो दो नंबर गिवन है उसमें जो छोटा उसका डबल, मतलब कि 80. क्लियर है? स्क्वायर ऑफ 9 81 होता है, स्क्वायर ऑफ 10 100 होता है. तो आपसे पूछा गया बेसिकली कि 81 और 100 के बीच में कितने नंबर आएंगे, तो 18 नंबर्स आएंगे. ठीक है? मूविंग बैक टू द क्वेश्चन. ये क्वेश्चन देखिए फिर क्या कह रहा है. 11 स्क्वायर और 12 स्क्वायर के बीच में कितने आएंगे. ठीक है, तो सिंपली 11 और 12 में छोटा कौन? 11, तो 11 का डबल मतलब 22 नंबर्स आएंगे. अगर 11 का स्क्वायर लिया जाए जो कि 121 होता है, और 12 का स्क्वायर लिया जाए जो कि 144 होता है, तो इनके बीच में कितने नंबर आएंगे. तो करना क्या है हमें, 11 और 12 में छोटा कौन? 11, उसका डबल मतलब 22 नंबर्स. अगेन सी, question number 1 and 2 both are same, the words are different. That's why I said if the question can be asked in two ways. First, how many numbers between the square of this and this. And how many non-square numbers? Because as I said, all the numbers lying between two square numbers are not square numbers. All the numbers lying between the square of two numbers, yeah, all the numbers lying between two square numbers are never square numbers. कि दो नंबर हैं, मान लीजिए दो स्क्वायर नंबर्स हैं, उनके बीच में जितने भी नंबर आएंगे ना वो स्क्वायर नहीं होंगे, परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नहीं होंगे। जैसे फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन में फिर से देखें, 9 स्क्वायर और 10 स्क्वायर, ऑब्वियसली 9 इसमें क्या है, 9 9 81, 10 10 100, 9 9 81, 10 10 यस, तो 81 और 100 दोनों ही परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नंबर हैं, ये दोनों ही स्क्वायर नंबर हैं। तो 81 और 100 के बीच में जो 18 नंबर्स लाई कर रहे हैं उनमें से कोई भी परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नहीं होगा। तो 1 और 2 सेम है, वर्ड्स का फर्क है बस। फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन से पहला क्या कह रहा है कि हाउ मेनी नंबर्स लाई, सेकंड क्या कह रहा है, हाउ मेनी नॉन स्क्वायर नंबर्स लाई, बोथ आर सेम, क्योंकि जो नंबर है ना वो अंडरस्टूड है कि वो परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नहीं होंगे। अब अगेन मैं याद दिलाऊं, स्क्वायर या परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नहीं होंगे या होंगे से क्या मतलब है, होंगे का मतलब कि हम उस नंबर को कैसे लिख सकते हैं, एज द प्रोडक्ट ऑफ अ नंबर मल्टीप्लाइड बाय इटसेल्फ, राइट। जैसे अगर 81 है तो मैं उसको लिख सकता हूँ 9 into 9, पर 82 को नहीं लिख सकता मैं, 82 को मैं लिख ही नहीं सकता एनी नंबर मल्टीप्लाइड बाय द सेम नंबर। इसी तरह 83 को लिख ही नहीं सकता, नॉट इवन कि 84 85 86 87 88 18 किसी को भी नहीं लिख सकता। डायरेक्ट 81 के बाद जो नंबर आएगा वो आएगा 100, 100 को लिख सकता हूँ 10 into 10, राइट। तो अगर किसी नंबर को हम ऐसे लिख सकते हैं, किसी भी नंबर को हम लिख सकते हैं एज ए प्रोडक्ट ऑफ एनी नंबर्स मल्टीप्लाइड बाई सेल्फ, कि कोई नंबर है उसको हम कैसे लिख लें कि कोई नंबर मल्टीप्लाइड बाई वही, तब तो वो परफेक्ट स्क्वायर है। अगर नहीं लिख सकते तो नहीं है। फॉर एग्जांपल मेरे पास 35 है, अब मुझे दो ऐसे नंबर सोचना है, मतलब कोई एक ऐसा नंबर सोच लीजिए जिसको उसी से मल्टीप्लाई करने पे 35 आ जाए, नॉट पॉसिबल। लेकिन वही 36 है, पॉसिबल है, 6 को 6 से ही करने पर 36 आ जाता है, ठीक है। तो 6 के बाद अब सीधा कौन आएगा, या 36 अगर परफेक्ट स्क्वायर है, क्योंकि 36 को 6 into 6 लिख सकते हैं, तो नेक्स्ट होगा सीधा 49, क्योंकि 7 into 7। अब 36 और 49 के बीच में जितने भी हैं वो परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नहीं है, एंड अगेन परफेक्ट स्क्वायर नहीं है का मतलब उसको उस फॉर्म में नहीं लिखा जा सकता। तो अगेन 100 स्क्वायर 101 स्क्वायर के बीच में कितने आएंगे, तो 100 और 101 में छोटा है 100, तो 100 का डबल 200, खत्म। यानी कि 100 का स्क्वायर जो भी आए और 101 का स्क्वायर जो भी आए, उन दोनों नंबर्स के बीच में कितने नंबर्स आएंगे, या ये कहें कि कितने नॉन स्क्वायर नंबर्स आएंगे, क्योंकि वो जो भी नंबर होंगे वो स्क्वायर होंगे ही नहीं, तो सिंपली छोटे वाले का डबल। तो 100 और 101 में छोटा कौन है, 100, तो आंसर इज 200, ठीक है। मैं करके दिखा देता हूँ। एक क्वेश्चन ये है कि 100 का स्क्वायर है आपके पास, स्क्वायर ऑफ 100 है आपके पास, एंड देन आपके पास है स्क्वायर ऑफ 101, ठीक है। अब इसका कुछ आंसर होगा, हमें उससे कोई लेना देना नहीं है, इसका भी कुछ आंसर होगा, हमें इससे कोई लेना देना नहीं है। हमसे बस ये पूछा गया है कि जो भी ये आंसर आएंगे, जैसे 100 का स्क्वायर 10,000 और 101 का स्क्वायर कुछ होगा, तो ये जो भी होंगे शायद आई डोंट रिमेम्बर, इट माइट बी 1050, जो भी नहीं 10500 में, sorry the answer would end with 1, okay, just forget that। 100 का स्क्वायर कुछ होगा, 101 का स्क्वायर कुछ होगा, तो उनके बीच में कितने नंबर्स आएंगे हमें बस इससे मतलब है, तो हमें छोटे वाले का डबल, तो 100 का स्क्वायर 100 का डबल 200, ठीक है। यानी कि इन दोनों के स्क्वायर के बीच में 200 नंबर्स आएंगे। मैं एग्जैक्ट बता भी देता हूँ, अगर कैलकुलेटर यूज कर लूँ 101 के लिए, तो 101 मल्टीप्लाइड बाई 101 इज 10,201, ठीक है। हालांकि आपको उससे मतलब नहीं है, लेकिन समझाने के लिए 10,201, अगर 101 मल्टीप्लाइड बाई 101 इज 10,201। इसी तरह से इसका स्क्वायर कितना होगा आपको कोई मतलब नहीं है, लेकिन समझने के लिए, तो अगेन 100 मल्टीप्लाइड बाई 100, ठीक है। पहले मैं आपको और एक्सप्लेन करता हूँ, जीरो वाला भी कॉन्सेप्ट क्लियर हो जाएगा। 100 मल्टीप्लाइड बाई 100 मीन्स स्क्वायर ऑफ 100 मीन्स 100 मल्टीप्लाइड बाई 100। अब मल्टीप्लाई कैसे करते हैं, 1 into 1 इज 1, एंड 2 0 2 0 4 0, तो कितना आ गया 10,000। 10,000 और 10,201 के बीच में कितने नंबर्स आएंगे, तो छोटे वाले का डबल, ट्रिक हमारे पास है। तो 100 और 101 में छोटा कौन है, 100, तो 100 का डबल 200। यानी कि अगर आप बैठ के काउंट करना शुरू करें 10,001, 10,002 चलते चलते 10,200 तक, क्योंकि 2,201 को तो लेना नहीं है, सिर्फ 200 नंबर। क्लियर? तो करना क्या होता है, अगर ऐसा क्वेश्चन पूछे कि किसी भी दो कंसेक्यूटिव नंबर हैं, जैसे 100 एंड 101 कंसेक्यूटिव है, 100 एंड 102 होगा तो ये रूल वैलिड नहीं है, 100 एंड 101 है, दोनों का स्क्वायर लेना है और दोनों के स्क्वायर के बीच में कितने नंबर आएंगे, तो छोटे वाले का डबल। क्लियर? ऐसे ही हो जाएगा 90 और 90 स्क्वायर और 91 स्क्वायर के बीच में, तो छोटा कौन है, 90, तो 90 का डबल 180, 180 होंगे। इसी तरह से यहाँ पे 1000 स्क्वायर एंड 1001 स्क्वायर, आंसर होगा कुछ, हमें उससे कोई लेना देना नहीं है, हमसे ये पूछा गया है कि इनके बीच में कितने, तो 1000 और 1001 में छोटा कौन है, 1000, तो छोटे वाले का डबल 1000 का डबल 2000 नंबर्स आएंगे। ये क्वेश्चन हम पहले कर चुके थे, सबका सम निकालना। लास्ट क्वेश्चन जो कि इस वाले पे ही बेस्ड है, ये कह रहा है express 49 as the sum of 7 odd numbers and similarly express 121 as the sum of 11 odd numbers। ये दोनों सिमिलर हैं, कैसे? अगर हम इसका आंसर दें, वन कैसे करते थे, प्रॉपर्टी क्या थी, I don't know the video, actually I don't know what's the reason the video suddenly stopped. I was about to explain the last question, by the way. That's it for today. I don't know why did it stop. I'm trying it for one last time. So here is the slide. Here is the question. I need, if I answer this one, so how would I answer? See, this property says the sum of first n odd natural numbers is n square, right? Remember, all numbers should be odd. They should start with, 1, and all should be consecutive. 3 conditions. In that case, how do you answer? We need to check how many numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So answer is 5 square, meaning 25. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Answer is 10 square. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Answer is 12 square, right? 144. So these two questions are very similar. This question and these questions, very similar. I'm going to explain this one. We have to write 41 as the sum of 7 odd numbers. मतलब 7 odd numbers लीजिए आप, जिनको ऐड करने से 49 है, ऑब्वियसली यही है। तो कैसे लिख सकते हैं हम, 7 odd नंबर जिसका सम 49 आ जाए, तो कैसे होगा वो, मैं क्या करूंगा, 1 plus 3 plus 5 plus 7 plus 9 plus 11 plus 13। अगर हम गिने, क्या 7 है, 1 2 3 4 5, यस 7 है, तो क्या होगा आंसर, 7 स्क्वायर विच इज 49। क्लियर है? क्वेश्चन को घुमा के पूछ लिया, नो इश्यू, ठीक है। फर्स्ट पार्ट ये था कि 1 प्लस 3 प्लस 5 प्लस, इस क्वेश्चन को दो तरह से पूछ सकते हैं। पहला ये कि 1 प्लस 3 प्लस 5 प्लस 7 प्लस 9 प्लस 11 प्लस 13 का आंसर कितना होगा। तो हम प्रॉपर्टी यूज करेंगे कि द स्क्वायर ऑफ फर्स्ट एन ऑड नेचुरल नंबर्स इज एन स्क्वायर, ठीक है। हम वो प्रॉपर्टी यूज करेंगे, तो उसके हिसाब से क्या होता है, कितने हैं काउंट कर लीजिए, तो 7 है, 1 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, 7 स्क्वायर। और इसी क्वेश्चन को घुमा के पूछ लिया कि 49 को इस तरह से लिखो कि दैट इज इक्वल टू द सम ऑफ द फर्स्ट 7 ऑड नेचुरल नंबर्स। हम उसको ऐसे भी लिख सकते हैं कि इन सातों का सम। तो सेम क्वेश्चन है। सिमिलरली इस क्वेश्चन की बात करें, लास्ट क्वेश्चन ऑफ द लास्ट स्लाइड फॉर टुडे, 121 को 11, रिमेंबर 11 स्क्वायर इज 121। तो इसको हम कैसे लिख सकते हैं, इस क्वेश्चन को हम लिख सकते हैं 129 को अगर हम लिखना चाहें तो बस इसमें 11 नंबर ले लेंगे, तो कितना हो जाएगा, 1 प्लस 3 प्लस 5 प्लस 7 प्लस 9 प्लस 11 प्लस 13 प्लस 15 प्लस 17, राइट, प्लस 19 प्लस 21, 11 होगा क्या ये? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11, यस। अगर हम इन सबको जोड़ेंगे तो आंसर 121 ही आएगा। अकॉर्डिंग टू द प्रॉपर्टी देयर आर 11 नंबर्स, ऑल आर ऑड, right? All are consecutive odd numbers and they're starting with 1, so answer would be 11 square, meaning 121. That's it. Okay, so that was the question. तो इसको कहीं कैसे भी घुमा के पूछ सकता है कि 1 प्लस 3 प्लस व्हाट विल बी द सम ऑफ 1 प्लस 3 प्लस 5 प्लस 7 एंड सो ऑन, तो हमें काउंट कर लेना है कितना है, दैट स्क्वायर। घुमा के पूछ दिया कि 121 को लिखो इस तरह से कि 11 ऑड नंबर्स चूज करो, फर्स्ट 11 ऑड नंबर्स, फर्स्ट वर्ड बहुत जरूरी है। ऐसा नहीं होगा कि हम 1 को छोड़ दें और आंसर सही आ जाए, नहीं आएगा। या 1 से शुरू तो करें लेकिन बीच में कोई नंबर छोड़ दे, नहीं आएगा। तो कंडीशन क्या है, सारे ऑड, तीन कंडीशन है, सारे ऑड, 1 से शुरू होना चाहिए और कंसेक्यूटिव। जैसे इस क्वेश्चन में 1 2 3 4 5, आंसर इज 5 स्क्वायर। ये आंसर 5 स्क्वायर तभी ट्रू होगा जब हम ये तीनों कंडीशन सेटिस्फाई हो कि ये सारे के सारे ऑड हैं, यस। क्या 1 से शुरू है, यस। और 1 से शुरू भी है तो क्या लगातार हैं कि 1 के बाद नेक्स्ट ऑड 3 है, 3 के बाद नेक्स्ट ऑड 5 है। ऐसा ना हो कोई बीच में ड्रॉप कर दिया जाए तो आंसर नहीं होगा, राइट। तो ये दोनों सेम है। आज के लिए इतना ही, दैट्स इट फॉर टुडे। वी हैव, एज आई मेंशन अर्लियर, वी हैव टू टॉपिक्स लेफ्ट, Pythagorean triplets, and the method to find the square of bigger numbers that we will discuss in the next class. And if I will discuss that one, then a square will be completely completed. Okay, so goodbye, have a nice day, bye bye.